What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 6 edition of the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Show here on Rotogrinders. I am Britt Devine, joined as always by Mr. Fantasy over at PFF, Ian Harditz. Ian, it's been I've had fun this season. It's been fun doing the show with you. It's been fun playing DFS. It's been fun making money. The COVID's trying to hold us down. We just got a little bit of news on the Patriots here. Possibly we'll talk about that a little bit, but dude, I'm having a fun season. I'm having fun doing the show. I think our analysis is pretty good. We got to get these helicopter plays in at the end. We're both missing on them just a little bit. I think we got a couple good ones this week, though.
It's a funny little system I've schemed up here. My one-man helicopter competitions. Had someone on Twitter like, this Ian guy's never right. And I was like, you are correct. I cannot hit a low-owned GPP dart to save my life these days. But I'm feeling good about week 6 and moving forward, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, I was looking before the show. We're both on sort of the same things this week. Maybe we're onto something. We'll duke them out to see who gets to take credit on this. But anyway, we like to start the show out with Ian's main article. It is the Mismatch manifesto over at PFF. It is a premium article. He's got a couple new pieces. He's got a whole DFS breakdown over on PFF if you want that. It includes some of his helicopter plays. That is for the low price of $350. So if you want some free content, go get that. Mismatch. How many times can I mess that up? Manifesto is behind the paywall at PFF. You can get that for $39.99 Edge subscription. Look at explosive plays, EPA, yards before contact, battle in the trenches, all sorts of cool stuff to analyze the DFS slate a little differently than, hey, play Alexander Madison because he's going to touch the ball 400 times against the Falcons. Ian, what do we got for us this week? Let's start off with explosive plays. These can be GPP winners. What are we looking at?
Yeah, articles behind the paywall, but if you guys want to just see the charts that I use, to formulate all these ideas and stuff, just check me out on Twitter at iHeart. It's explosive passing offenses this week, really set up for success. Now, remember, it's always just one. Each of these are, one part of many of the equation, obviously. But Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins are popping as the two top quarterbacks this week in explosive pass play rate. I would just note very different between these two guys because you look at them and they're both in run first offenses. Their passing game is both kind of condensed around two main wide receivers, but Kirk Cousins is one of the top quarterbacks in the league right now in deep ball rate. Jared Goff's on the exact other end of the spectrum. So unfortunately can't get as behind Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. I think we couldn't past years if the volume was still up there. But I think with Cousins, particularly against this Falcons banged up secondary, that wasn't even good when they were healthy. This could be a matchup we want to attack. Like you said, everyone's on Madison, but maybe we go a little bit against the grain and go after these wide receivers. On the other side of things, Joe Burrow and Jimmy Garoppolo are not set up. The Garoppolo situation in San Francisco, I mean, you heard Shanahan after the game just talking about not wanting Jimmy G out there while he's having to pass so much and still not 100%. They're going to be a run first offense this week. So I would, definitely don't pay attention to that passing game here. With Burrow, though, this is one of those situations where I think the Colts' early season success kind of set up with some cake matchups. I think they're popping here a little bit fraudulently. Credit to them for, shutting down Baker Mayfield and company in the second half, but the first half was looking pretty rough for those guys. And the one thing I would note here is that the Colts, while their pass defense has been doing good this year, they ranked 25th in pressure rate. We'll get to that soon, but because that's the kryptonite we got to worry about with Joe Burrow. I don't think the Colts quite have enough to completely shut him down.
Yeah, I saw something, I don't know who it was on Twitter, 1 for 22 is Burrow on, these deep 20-plus yard passes and things like that. So just, and the pressure is what's really getting to him. He's just not, and you got Dust AJ Green out there too. Maybe we'll have some plays from this game a little bit later on the Bengals side here. And you mentioned Kirk Cousins, right? Thielen, he's like the stone cold chalk of the week at wide receiver. People are really buying into that game. So, Madison and Thielen, can they both do good? I think they can. I think they're going to be chalky for a reason, but I like both of those guys this week. What else are we looking at in the manifesto over here?
Yeah, with the pace, just looking at games that, could resemble more of a track meet out there. Cardinals and Cowboys are the number 1 and number 2 teams in pace. They're playing each other. I was talking to Dwayne McFarland on the PFF Fantasy Football podcast this week, and Dwayne's prediction for this game was that this will be the single most plays running a football game in the 2020 season. We will see, but, that over and under in Cowboys games this year has never been low enough, seemingly so far. Don't mind going back to well there, even without Dak. And then really slow games, Lions, Jaguars, and Bears, Panthers. The Jaguars one's interesting because I kind of like some of the matchups on that Lions side of the ball, but just a good reminder in some of these games, if you're really trying to game stack and expect a shootout, we do like to have faster paced offenses out there.
Pressure. Let's talk some defenses. Maybe we can target here. Maybe some offenses that might be in a little bit of trouble. That could be chalky. Where are we looking at over there? This and sort of like the offensive line run battle. in the trenches, I think was one of the most overlooked things in DFS today.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on there. And so yeah, with the pressure, seeing Baker Mayfield, anyone that plays the Steelers, I mean, is going to be on the top of this chart week after week. So Baker Mayfield, no exception, even though the Browns offensive line obviously playing some better ball this year. Daniel Jones and the Giants, man, like that Cowboys matchup was so good last week. And if there was going to be a game from the pop off, I think it was that one. They just can't protect him right now. I mean, Daniel Jones has been under pressure more than any other quarterback this year going against Chase Young and company. I don't think it's the time to really expect that to turn around. Ravens, Lamar Jackson's under pressure. We know he can kind of avoid it though. Drew Lock, we'll talk about that game. I don't even think he's going to be doing his thing. And then Joe Flacco, the one person we care about in this New York Jets offense is Jamison Crowder. Other than him, that is it. So those are the guys under trouble. Guys that should have all day to throw though. Cam Newton, if he's out there again, COVID, we'll see. And then Tom Brady sneakily. I mean, I know Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith. These are some great edge rushers, but haven't really been getting the quarterback quite as consistently this year. We'll see if Godwin can get out there. I know Evans has been a little bit banged up too, but Brady, his arm is not washed, and so this is maybe a situation that with people maybe overlooking what he could do against this Packers secondary.
Yeah, I think he needs Godwin back. I think right before the show, I saw a tweet from someone in the Bucks organization says maybe Godwin's able to come back this week. Well, that's probably going to be something we hear about Saturday night, Sunday morning. But if Godwin's back, I think Brady could be a reasonably strong play in what I believe could be a shootout this week.
Yeah.
A couple other things we always talk about: defensive, offensive line, pass games. Right, that's what we just talked about. Let's hit up the run game. There's a couple big discrepancies this week. What's standing out to you?
Yeah, with the yards before contact, just trying to isolate offensive line plays. So the Cardinals always pop, and it's more Kyler Murray, especially this year, for why they're popping. I mean, this dude easily leads the league in yards before contact per rush. I mean, you see him out there. This dude's never exactly dragging defenders, but the fact he's able to do everything he can is just wild. But another week, Kenyon Drake again projected 15, 20 touches. So luckily he's off the main slate, so we don't have to worry about it this week. But if you're in season long, you're probably still going to fire him up in this solid matchup. 49ers run game is set up really well. Expecting them to be, running the ball as much as possible as long as Jimmy G is banged up. And Raheem Mostert has been looking pretty great out there. So I understand, Aaron Donald and company, we saw how he just single-handedly pretty much took over that game last week. But I think the 49ers are a little bit more set up to avoid a complete pitfall, like that. Ravens also set up well, but we don't know what's going on in that backfield. I guess the other backfield I take note of is James Conner with the Steelers. Fourth best run game matchup of the week. When James Conner is out there, we need to treat him as a top 12 RB that he's been for the past pretty much 3 seasons whenever he has been healthy. So the only bad matchups, Kareem Hunt against the Steelers and Miles Sanders against the Ravens. As we saw with Miles Sanders last week, even when you're in a tough matchup, if you're getting 15, 20 touches and talented back as both Hunt and Sanders are, you'll be able to overcome this type of spot.
All right, let's look at EPA2. This is always something. Did the overs come through last week, and they've been killing on these so far this year?
Yeah, they went 3 last week, so it was one of the worst weeks. But we're still at 19 wins.
50% the worst week. That's not too bad.
Exactly. On the season, 19 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. So I would just say, because again, we're going over this on a Friday. We were talking before the show a little about how valuable it is to be able to go to the sports book. You're able to on Monday before lines move. So, I'm going with, what the opening lines are and how this is doing. So if you see one that's changed by 5, since it's opened up, maybe stay away there. But yeah, so just premise of the, betting the overs here is just offenses that are both positive on both sides of the ball. Both offenses have good matchups in the game, and we bet the over on that. So this week's qualifiers are Texans, Titans, Falcons, Vikings, Lions, Jaguars, Packers, Buccaneers, Chiefs, Bills, and Cardinals, Cowboys. So maybe that, Lions, Jaguars game, we'll see if Chark's out there. We'll see, that pace is a little bit problematic. But otherwise, I think I do like these other games' chances at putting up a ton of points on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, all those games like the stone chalk, by the way, of what's going to be rostered in DFS this week, that are going to be the over. So maybe what we're starting to roster is catching up to sort of the EPA and the totals and things like that. But again, that is Ian's article, the Mismatch Manifesto, over on PFF. If you want to check it out, there's that and so much more. I do want to remind you guys real quick, if you're looking for a discount on Rotogrinders Premium, we'll talk ownership. I'll show you some Gridiron IQ stuff throughout here. If you want all the tools, we got $5 off your first month. If you are already a subscriber, unfortunately, you are unable to take advantage of that. But if you are new to Rotogrinders and you want $5 off your first month, use code PFF. It's rotogrinders.com/media/PFF. and input the code, and you'll be able to get $5 off. All right, let's talk a couple of bets here. You mentioned one of the things I figured out is you got to go to the sports book on Sunday night, right? If you're in New Jersey where they have like literally $1 billion or something of handle online almost now, look at it Sunday night, right? You can get in on the lines. If you have to go somewhere, that's what I have to do. It's only a 10-minute drive, thankfully. Go Monday morning. And if you can just use some common sense and pick out a couple of lines, you can get some really major swings, right? Like I had the Browns plus 2.5 last week, and I think they closed as like 1 point favorites or something like that. It's just you can get these really massive swings in totals. I was able to get a couple of those this week as well. So on Monday, I went and got the Vikings, right? I got them at -3 on Monday. They're -4 now on DraftKings. This is probably my favorite bet of the week. The Falcons are they're just legitimately horrible in my opinion, and I think the Vikings are pretty good. They nearly beat Seattle in Seattle last week. They almost beat the Titans, and the Titans just crushed the Bills. We think they're good. This is just a really easy good team, bad team. The Vikings are at home. This is like a 7-point line to me. This is probably my favorite of the week. If you want to go on sharp side, right? I got the hat on. We got like a little streak bet, get 6 or more going, start getting some FanDuel bucks for free. Doesn't really cost you anything too. You just like click a lock bet in. I locked this one in, so I really like that one. The other one I got, what else? I got the Dolphins earlier at like +7. They're like +9.5 right now. Still, I mean, it's the Jets. They're just going to roll the Jets. The Jets are horrible. Gase is probably the worst coach in the NFL. That team is probably the worst in the NFL. I just think it's really easy. So those are my 2 bets. And I'm going to hit you with a couple other ones. I got a Wong teaser. These are always great, right? When you can cross the 3 and the 7. Generally, that's always a good thing in your sports betting if you're doing teasers. I had the Ravens and the Dolphins on that. Unfortunately, you can't get that with the Dolphins anymore. You can do the Ravens and the Colts. And even though the Colts are fraudulent, I think the Bengals are also bad too. So I think the Colts will probably win this game. That's what that basically comes to. And then my over, a 43, right? You in today's economy and over a 43, Ian, Giants, Redskins, right? They're 2 horrible teams, but 43 is just too low, I think, for any NFL game. I don't care who's playing right now. So I hit the over on that one. So that's where I stand on my bets this week.
43 during a pandemic, no less. Just wild to see, wild to see, man. But yeah, went one on one of these last week. Got the Panthers, missed the Jaguars. Couple of chances for them to kind of get back in it, but whatever. A win is a win, just like a loss is a loss. So moving on this week, I wish I would have been at your position at the sportsbook Monday morning, because if I could have gotten the Cardinals at +3 or whatever they were opening up at, man, I would have done that. Even with this line crossing over and the Cardinals being 1-point favorites, it's a situation where like Andy Dalton is okay, but the best version of Andy Dalton we've ever seen is as pretty much an above average quarterback. Kyler Murray is already much more than that. We know this Cowboys defense is awful. Losing Chandler Jones is objectively awful for the Cardinals, but I just think this is a situation where the Cardinals are clearly a better football team. We usually see like inflated Cowboys games or inflated Cowboys lines. We definitely have this year. And I think just the idea that they're not going to be, a 3-13 team without Dak or anything like that. But the idea that they're still just like very competitive team when they were struggling to be that with Dak, I'm fading any sort of Dalton optimism at the moment. And then got a money line parlay that I kind of like just with these squads, and can bet 100 to win 596, 1-1 on these this year. Wouldn't mind throwing the Vikings in there too. I do agree with your assessment on the Falcons just being legit horrible, but I like the Lions take care of Jaguars. Jaguars defense already sucks, and the amount of injuries they have over there is just truly making them like a JV squad at this point. Steelers over the Browns. Baker Mayfield, his numbers are actually career worst numbers. I think this is a week that he's going to have to throw the ball more than he has before. Not the defense he'll be playing for that. Colts are going to roll the Jets. Colts are playing the Colts playing the Bengals. They're going to roll them. Jets are going to get rolled, though, by the Dolphins. Don't worry about that. Ravens against the Eagles. Wentz actually played his best game of the year last week, but even with that, still have plenty of turnovers out there, just not the matchup for him to get back on track. And then finally, Chiefs over Bills, stealing over that loss. Tuesday turnaround for the Bills. Not going to be easy, not something we're used to. I think Patrick Mahomes and company only favored by 4 points. Get it done.
Yeah, the big money line parlays, they work until they don't, right? So the Chiefs,
Yeah.
the Chiefs took me out last week. I had a bunch of stuff tied to the Chiefs. They let me down. So that killed a lot of my parlays. But I do like these. I like the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Ravens. The Colts are probably the one fraudulent team, but I still think they win. I like all those if you're adding them into parlays this week. I want to remind everybody, the FanDuel single entry series, it's back, right? So we hate playing against 150 times 500 people who put in 150 lineups sometimes in DFS. If you want a single entry series, we have it back. It is on FanDuel. It is weeks 6 through 13. It is single entry contest at 3 different buy-ins: $5, $33, and $100. The top 4 combined scores count within each buy-in tier over the course of the season, right? So maybe you miss a week, maybe you miss 2 weeks. That's cool. Just play it every now and then. Your top 4 scores will count in each buy-in tier. And then the top 2 finishers in each tier advance to a 6-man, $20,000. I guess you can call it it's not a live final, but hey, it's like a little final. It's basically just an add-in from Rotogrinders. Check it out. It's on FanDuel. It's a big series. We run it basically every year. And a really great thing, partnership we have with FanDuel on that one. So go check that out, everybody. Let's get into the plays of the week now. I think it's really shaping up to be, I guess, a little chalky week, from what I'm looking at right now. And it's a little bit different of a week because we don't have Russ isn't cooking and Dak's hurt. And, Aaron Rodgers is on the slate, but it's against Tampa Bay. And there's just there's no Patrick Mahomes on the main slate. There's no Josh Allen on the main slate. We're lacking a little bit. And I think everyone's playing like the same 3 or 4 running backs, at least in cash games. And then that makes everyone else's lineup looks pretty much the same. But I'm going to start off at quarterback. There's 2 guys I'm really on. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's 5,900 against the Jets. He's definitely going to be the chalkiest play because when you get the $5,900 quarterback coming off a couple of big games, he's got revenge, he's got swag, he's got everything going for him against the Dolphins. It looks really good. I don't know if I'm worried, but there's ways this game goes sideways really quick, and they just don't have to pass the ball, and it's a Myles Gaskin game or something like that. So I do like Fitz at 5,900. It makes the rest of your lineup look really sexy. The Jets 31st in coverage grade at PFF, 4th lowest adjusted sack rate, 3rd most EPA allowed on pass plays. You just got everything else. It's just hey, if Flacco throws a pick 6, if there's a fumble from Frank Gore or something like that, or it's 21-0 real early. Is Fitzpatrick going to have to chuck the ball? Now it's against the Jets. They might let him because, hey, why not? But he looks pretty good. If you want to spend a little bit more money, I think a little bit safer a play is going to be Deshaun Watson set up against Tennessee. I like Ryan Tannehill, but the volume just isn't there. I think the volume will be there for Watson. Eventually he's going to start running. He showed he's still got it and he has the upside. And I think that game's going to score a ton of points. So Watson, if you have a little bit more money, Fitz, if you need to save money in cash, that's where I'm looking at, Ian.
Yeah, we've seen that with Fitz there. His 2 best games against the Jaguars and then against the 49ers, like he just didn't have the pass volume. He was just killing it and they got up quickly and didn't even have to keep their foot on the gas. So but that could happen this week. I'm with you. That's why I'm a little bit off him. But he's, I went through every single quarterback. I had a new article this week, week 6 DFS deep dive, still talking helicopters. But you know what? If we want these things to start flying, we got to, at least I need to take a bigger look at the whole slate and kind of go through things a little bit tighter. So that's what I really want to do this week. And just going through quarterbacks by quarterbacks. I kind of got my top 5 down to Watson, Fitzpatrick, like you said. Tannehill, I like too, but just the pass game volume is always kind of a problem. Matthew Stafford, will they ever get away from AP? We'll see. Cam Newton, barring COVID, is the guy I want to be lining up there for cash at 6,500. I think he's a little bit reduced in price just because we haven't seen him out there for a couple of weeks. But before this happened, even with him missing a game now, his 15-game pace in rush attempts at 175 is on pace to shatter his previous career high at 139. So he is their goal line back. He's the engine of an offense implied to, score a robust 27.5 points this week. Broncos defense lost their stud DT, Jarrell Casey to the IR with a bicep injury. It's already a defense that's been banged up really since week 1. They lost and they lost Von Miller. So definitely not a matchup to fear. And, if he's out there, I'm fine going with Cam, even going with a naked approach and not even stacking him with anybody. I think that's on the table. If you do want to stack, you got Demir Bird there sitting at, I think, 3,500. And that's one of the ways to free up some salary elsewhere. So love Cam if they play. If not, though, take a long look at Stafford. And this would be a little bit more for GPPs. But the big issue with Stafford this year is his average target depth hasn't been the same. They haven't been thrown downfield, but they got Kenny Galladay back in week 3. We've now seen back-to-back weeks with his average target depth, getting back up in the right spots. And again, just can't say enough bad things about this Jaguars secondary. They are all kinds of banged up. Now the front 7 is having an issue. I just think this is a good get-right spot for his Lions offense, coming off a bye, finally healthy, very easy to make. I mean, we know Kenny Galladay is going to be chalky, but going with Stafford, and then throwing in Marvin Jones and TJ Hawkinson, I think there's ways to get access to this game that will be a little bit more under the radar.
Yeah, I've got another. When these bad defensive teams lose their starters, and they're already bad, then they almost crumble. There's another team
It
that's sort
doesn't
of
get
like that.
better. Doesn't get
Yeah,
better.
there's another team, the Panthers, right? They're down a couple of starters too. We'll talk about a couple of players I like on their team this week. So that's about it at the quarterback position. Let's move over to running back. The chalk there is obviously going to be Alexander Madison. He had what was this? 23 opportunities. That's I count those rushes plus targets. And Cook, he left at halftime, right? Like right after halftime. Imagine what he's going to do this week against Atlanta. Basically, I see there's almost no way he doesn't get 20 plus opportunities unless the Vikings fall behind 14-0. And even then, right, the Vikings love to run so much. It's just I almost see him as a can't miss prospect barring injury this week. I would literally play him way over the field. I would have no problem locking him in tournaments either. I just think he's almost the surest bet to give us production this week at the position. Atlanta's allowing the sixth most fantasy points to running backs. Minnesota's the fourth highest run percentage in the league, despite being 1-4, right? Like that's what really stands out to me. You know what they want. Madison, they've already said it. There's no drop off from Madison to Cook. Madison looks pretty good. I think he's just the clear chalk at the running back position. There's a couple other guys too. You want to talk about David Montgomery? He's going to be chalky. We've got Mike Davis, who CMC. I don't even know if he's CMC light. He might be CMC. And those are going to be the three plays everyone's going to be using. Do you see any reason to really move off of the chalky running backs and cash just seem like such locks right now? Yeah. Well, maybe not David Montgomery. We saw David Montgomery chalk week last year. It's a little bit different this year in terms of the situation. But why don't you talk about Montgomery right now?
Yeah, no, I'm fine going back to well here with Montgomery. Over the past 2 weeks, he's actually been okay because he's been able to find the end zone and he's gotten targets. He didn't used to get targets, but Tariq Cohen's gone, and Montgomery is now a true 80% plus snap workhorse. He just had back-to-back pretty tough matchups against the Buccaneers and Colts. I mean, those are two defenses that I think we all know are rough. I'm watching Montgomery out there. I know despite, the yards after contact and his elusive rating being a little bit better, still not someone that we're going to see, put his foot in the ground and pick up a quick 40 down the field. Not sure if he has that in his range of outcomes, but he's still playing pretty good this year overall. And it's just the reality of him being a featured workhorse in an offense. And now they're going to price him at only 5,800 against, again, we got the Jaguars and we got the Panthers in terms of the two run defenses we really want to attack week after week. As you said, Panthers now dealing with additional injuries, now expecting that to help matters. I think it's a spot where at that price point and that matchup, just very hard to get away from. And so going through the cash games, obviously I'm with you. I wanted to have Mike Davis in there as well, but it was kind of hard to get up at the tight end position with that in mind and be able to get some of the wide receivers I wanted. So the one change I would make is going off of Mike Davis just because of pricing and getting down to Jonathan Taylor. I think the stars are aligning for this to be Jonathan Taylor week, man. Everything is opening up for this dude. You just look at what went wrong last week. Anthony Costanzo was out. Well, he's been practicing all week with the rib injury. Jordan Wilkins has always been a thorn in the side. He's dealing with a calf injury and played a season low 2 snaps the week before. I mean, you look at this just defense they're going up against from the Bengals, already not a unit we're fearing. And you look at them over the past 3 weeks, defensive linemen, DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard, Mike Daniels, they're all on IR now. Again, not a unit we were fearing, now even more banged up. So these are the games we should be targeting. And Taylor, I know he hasn't been super impressive so far, but this is still one of the more talented backs. The entire draft class has at least 14 touches in every game this year, and just really seems like the week he can get going and get off. So maybe it's not one of these annoying, 12 carries for 57 yards and a score with 2 catches for 10 yards type situation. But I want to be there on the week. It works with Jonathan Taylor, not the week after. And to me, this is a spot that everything gets right for him.
Yeah, the other guy I think will be reasonably popular is going to be Miles Gaskin. I think Fitz and Gaskin in the same cash lineup isn't the most horrible thing because you're outside of the 2 or 3 defensive touchdowns, but you're going to play the Dolphins defense too in cash. Yeah. You're going to get all of the defense, all the touchdowns if you do that route. I think in terms of the Miami offense this week, a couple tournament plays. I'm looking at David Johnson. I know it's like you got to hold your nose, but to find these 80% plus market share of the touches in a backfield and snaps that nobody rosters, it's almost impossible in DFS. And we have that this week. And David Johnson, in his first non-Bill O'Brien game, 80% of the snaps, 21 opportunities. Tennessee's allowing the most yards before contact in the league. I think David Johnson can probably benefit from that a little bit. He needs to get those extra yards before contact. He's involved in the passing game a little. And with Watson not running as much, he can dump it off a little bit more. Now, if he starts running, maybe a couple of those dump offs disappear. But it's basically a hold your nose, play David Johnson, and hopefully finds the end zone and gets 20 touches, because if he does that, he's probably going to make GPP value for you. And it's just a little swerve. You get a little bit lower ownership. And something that's really big in tournaments, I look at it, it's the overall total ownership of your lineup. You never want to be too high. You never want to be too low. You want to have a good mix of really high on plays, some mid tier, and a low owned player too. That's what really sort of rises to the top in large field tournaments. I think David Johnson, you throw him in there. You can play a couple other chalky players. Hold your nose. We both are on another play. We'll save it for a little bit later in the show that we both like at running back too. What do you think about David Johnson?
I think it's fine. He could have had a much bigger start than this year. I mean, I tweeted out a video this week, but 3 different instances where he was wide open, either in the end zone or running away from everyone downfield, and Watson just couldn't put the ball where he needed to put it. So, there's a lot of things that go into that, and I understand, running back downfield targets a little bit less sticky, but Duke Johnson came back. David Johnson still getting 15 and 25 touches per week. I'm with you. At some point, just like David Montgomery, these guys are going to give us a usable week.
All right, let's go to wide receiver. A couple of players. I'll let you start. Who are you looking at in cash at wide receiver this week?
Yeah, I like both these Lions receivers, but I don't like them together necessarily because, looking back at last season, we saw Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones combined for 20 receiving scores, but they scored in the same game just twice. I mean, literally every single time Galladay had a dud, and he had 4 of them. He had fewer than 50 receiving yards with no scores 4 times. Marvin Jones played in 3 of those games, and he put up 6 catches, 101 yards, and a score. 4 catches, 43 yards, and 2 scores. And then the, famous 10 catches, 93 yards, and 4 score game he had against the Vikings. So 7 touchdowns in 3 games with Kenny Galladay dudding last season. So, one of my favorite stacks in my article I'm pointing out is Matthew Stafford, Marvin Jones, and TJ Hawkinson, getting away from that potential Galladay bust. But in terms of cash, it's hard to get away from Galladay. I know he's going to be chalky, but that's okay in these cash games. And, seeing him be healthy, he's already scored in both games since he's been back. And true, like, there's no one that can guard him in this Jaguars defense. So, maybe this is one of the games where Jones and Galladay can go off together. If you're making a bunch of Stafford stacks, I'm sure you'll have that in there. But, definitely wouldn't be afraid to throw Hawkinson in there. A little nervous about getting DeAndre Swift involved. Just, we don't know if and when he's ever really going to take over with AP doing his thing. But Galladay and cash, Marvin Jones and GPP, and don't be afraid to mix in Hawkinson with those stacks.
You have the Stones to play AP in a tournament for 20 rushes and 100 yards?
Absolutely not.
I don't think I can do that this week either. Yeah, Galladay does look chalky, but hey, if Brandon Cooks can do it, Kenny Galladay can do it as well. So look for Galladay to have a big game. I like that one. The one I'm looking at is, you got to take advantage when these games play Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever the hell the NFL plays them anymore. The sites don't have the time to adjust the prices. That is A.J. Brown this week. He is getting some target competition back. It looks like Adam Humphries is going to come back, but it's basically him. It's Jonnu. They're still going to miss Corey Davis as it looks like as we're recording this, Friday early afternoon and things like that. Houston's allowed the 5th highest expected points added passing this year. Texans have the 31st in pass rush grade. That's a team total over at PFF, so I like that too. So if he's got some time, he can work the middle of the field. He can go deep. He had a 32% target share last week. Maybe if that goes even down to like 27, 28% at, what is he, like 5,400 on DraftKings. He's looking like the stone chalk of the week. There are a couple good pivots. I like Derrick Henry quite a bit in tournaments because everybody's going to be doing that Alexander Madison, David Montgomery, 2 cheap running back type build right after Madison. So you just play up for Derrick Henry. He's your leverage off A.J. Brown. He gives you a little bit of a different lineup build too at lower ownership. But I like A.J. Brown cash. Probably would be underweight him in tournaments, specifically if he's almost approaching 30% ownership. That's basically a go underweight or legitimately fade based off, 3 years of research I've done looking at millionaire makers and tournaments and things like that. But yeah, you can swerve off to Derrick Henry. Don't use Henry or Jonnu Smith either in the same lineup. Those two probably will cannibalize each other. But A.J. Brown and cash. Tournaments, I got some plays for you, right? So you like David Montgomery. I like Allen Robinson for a couple of reasons. He's a double leverage player, right? So you leverage off Adam Thielen, who's going to be ultra popular, and you leverage off David Montgomery, who's going to be ultra popular. Carolina is getting absolutely nuked by big name wide receivers every single week. A-Rob gets a bajillion targets every week. I don't see how this fails, in my opinion. So A-Rob in a GPP, probably wouldn't play him with Montgomery, and a nice swerve off Adam Thielen in the same price range. The other guy I like, Slayton Ray, he worked for us last week. I'm going back to him this week. Still no Sterling Shepard. Saquon's still hurt. He's playing 99% of the snaps this year. He's your A.J. Brown pivot, in my opinion. Everyone's going to be playing A.J. Brown. He's a couple $100 cheaper. I like the over in this game. I think Washington's garbage. I think Slayton can have himself a really nice game. And then I got Tyler Boyd. This is, there's a couple things going on here. We got the AJ Green is dust play going on here, and we got the Colts just getting trounced by slot receivers. Braxton Berrios had a good game against the Colts. Jarvis Landry on one hip. He did it last week. Tyler Boyd, he's going to do it this week. I like him. Not really a pivot off anybody in the price range. Maybe he's your Kenny Golladay pivot. I think he's priced pretty close to him. But those are three GPP receivers I love quite a bit this week.
Yeah, only guys I would add to that, Laviska Shenault at 5,200. If DJ Chark ends up being ruled out, he's been seeing more targets by the week. Could be in for his biggest role yet with no Chark. Jamison Crowder at 6,100. At some point, only Devontae Adams is averaging more fantasy points per game among all wide receivers than Crowder. I know it's icky, but the guy keeps putting up production. And because it's Jamison Crowder, people continuously don't give him the ownership he probably deserves. With you on Boyd. Then also, T. Higgins there at 4,700. Same AJ Green as dust, mentality and reasoning as before.
Do you like what was I just going to say? I completely lost my train of thought for a second. Anyway, let's move on to tight ends. And it's a little weird. If you read my Millionaire Maker article, it's for premium members here on Rotogrinders. I think something like what the field uses, the top 3 owned tight ends every week are busting at the highest rates I have ever seen in the NFL. And it's pretty simple because we're using Drew Sample and Adam Troutman. We're playing a bunch of scrubs. What did I say last week? I said there were all the guys that you could use, but I said it's almost a lock that one of like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller were going to be the dude that wins tournaments. It was Travis Kelce last week.
Yeah.
This week, all those guys outside of Mark Andrews, they're not on the slate. So we can get a little different. I still don't know. There's a couple really cheap plays. I'll talk about them in tournaments. But I don't know if Irv Smith is 2,500 on DraftKings, right? And he ran a bunch of routes for the first time all season last week. Is that going to stick, or was that a certain game plan? You can legitimately take a 0 on something like that. So I'm looking to spend up a little bit. I like Jonnu Smith. If it's not Derrick Henry scoring the touchdown and from inside the 10, it's Jonnu Smith scoring the touchdown from inside the 10. So I like him. Tannehill's so efficient. I think he's really good. You get away from Adam Gase outside of Kenyon Drake, everyone balls out. So I'm liking him to Jonnu this week. I think you can put Jonnu in cash. I think he's reasonably priced. I would like to get to Mark Andrews, but he's just a little bit too expensive, especially with this Lamar Jackson isn't running. Well, if Lamar Jackson ain't running, he's throwing. And sometimes those throws aren't accurate, but that really helps out Mark Andrews, and they're going to score a bunch of touchdowns like I expect. I do like Andrews quite a bit, but I think Jonnu is that little nice guy right in the middle between the cheap guys that can legitimately give you a 0 that so many of us have been playing, and then Mark Andrews, who's just a little bit too expensive. So Jonnu in cash if you got it. I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing that this weekend.
Yeah, if this Patriots game ends up going off the slate and stuff, I'm probably going to have to get down to Jonnu, because the only reason I'm able to get up to Andrews right now in my cash bill is because I'm stacking Cam Newton with Damiere Byrd at 3,500. So going to be hard otherwise, and I'm with you on Jonnu. But yeah, if you can get up to Mark Andrews, I think go ahead and do it. This Eagles defense, easily the league's worst against tight ends this year. We saw Kittle go completely off on Sunday night, and also saw Higbee get that 3-touchdown game. Even Logan Thomas. I mean, the Eagles defense was the one that started the entire Logan Thomas infatuation across the whole industry. So if you can get up there to Mark Andrews, absolutely love it. Was getting all sorts of shiz on Twitter for saying Marquise Brown is now the Ravens' #1 pass game option. Yes, everyone, he is in terms of raw targets, but it's fine. It's still Hollywood and Andrews at the top with no one behind them. Going back to well with in GPPs with Lamar, Andrews, Hollywood stacks, I love, because maybe the rush game usage was a 1-game blimp. And to your point, if it wasn't, then okay, he's going to be throwing the ball more. So he's out there, and we know he's going to throw the ball too. Get Andrews and Hollywood in those stacks. And then with GPPs, I'm with you. Irv feels a little bit Trappy. He's a great player, like truly. Other than
Well,
Goddard, probably like the single best number 2 tight end in the league. Just a matter of if we'll get those targets. I think we're going to see more of a run first attack in the game that I don't think the Falcons are exactly going to force the Vikings to have to keep up. Darren Fells, if Jordan Akins is out again, makes sense. He's just going to be out there every single snap. And then Eric Ebron, who didn't have a huge game last week, but continues to play 75% plus snaps, getting 5-6 targets per game. Claypool's not going to score a touchdown, all the touchdowns every single week. I think Ebron will, emerge as a pretty consistent red zone threat for them.
Yeah, I got to see if Deontay's back too. I mean, that passing game looks to become loaded if everyone's healthy for Big Ben. So I guess, right, if you're looking in tournaments, we mentioned Irv Smith. If it's just a $2,500 price point, and we've seen people have taken down tournaments with zeros at tight end, because if the highest scoring tight end only gets like 13, you can make that up because you got the quarterback who gets 40 and the running back who gets like 35 and the receiver who gets 40, right? So there's ways to overcome it. But I like Irv Smith. You mentioned Fells. It does look like Jordan Akins is somewhat unlikely to play this week, and we've seen Fells. He's probably not going to rumble. What was that, like a 40-yard or something like that?
It was on busted coverage.
Yeah, that's not Darren Fells' game, but he's going to get some targets. And if you're a live body who, I could predict Darren Fells for more targets than Irv Smith, I think, pretty easily. Oh, yeah. He's not that much more expensive. He's someone I could look at. And then we've got, if on the Colts, right, if Mo Alley Cox is out, it's looking like he might miss the game. Trey Burton, he's running routes, still played under 50% of the snaps this week, but, joining the dust team, it looks to be Jack Doyle. And if Mo Alley Cox isn't around, who else are they going to throw to? Trey Burton, Phillip Rivers has always liked this tight end with Hunter Henry. I think there's a little bit of a connection there. Got to see how that injury situation plays out at tight end. Moving on to the defense, I'm pretty sure the chalk defense is going to be the Dolphins, or just 2,900. I wish Draftkings would have made them like 35 or 36, because anyone going against the Jets just automatically deserves to be the chalk defense. I think when Sam Darnold comes back, maybe it's a little different. We got Perryman back. Maybe the offense can do a little bit of something, but it looks like the Dolphins are going to be the chalk. I'm gonna whisper, right? Even though I like the over in the Giants game, Giants in a GPP, they're cheaper. Kyle Allen, horrible, right? And then we saw Alex Smith was, somehow Allen doesn't play again. Alex Smith was not able to do basically anything last week. And the Giants defense, it's not bad. They've been pretty good against the pass. They've been pretty good against the run. I think there's ways that their defense is able to have a pretty good game. It looks like currently they're projected to be lower owned. We always like cheap defenses in DFS, and you're playing the Redskins. I think the Giants ownership is good. I think we're at like 2 or 3%. That's going to creep up higher by the time Sunday comes around, but they're sort of my lower owned defense I'm on this weekend.
It's amazing what a great number 1 corner can do for a defense. We're seeing that with James Bradbury with the Giants. And then we saw, the Dolphins take a big step forward last week once they got Byron Jones back in action. So defense I'm looking at certainly doesn't have a big time number 1 cornerback, but it is the Minnesota Vikings. We saw them shut down Russ and company for 30 entire minutes. And that's a lot more time than pretty much anyone else has contained them this year. So only 2,300 at home against the Falcons. It's the easiest stack possible with Madison, and it's helping you, at the slow price point, just 2,300 to fit in some of these other guys. And you know what? Like, if it doesn't sound like Julio is particularly imminent to get back, we'll see. If he is out there, maybe that changes things a little bit. But I just think that the Falcons offense has looked lost. I mean, I understand Dan Quinn is out of the picture now. And, one of the reasons why I didn't want to put the Vikings in my teaser, at least I was a little bit hesitant to, it's just this idea we saw with the Texans last week. I mean, you kind of lose the unpopular head coach, you kind of see a team rally around it if you want to go down that storyline or whatever. So, but at 2,300, I just think it's a cheap enough price point that really helps the rest of your roster. And I mean, it's a defense that, again, has been playing a little bit better as the weeks have gone on. We know they're well coached. They at least have some blue chip players in there. I think going to that lower price point is doable this week.
That gets me Derrick Henry in my lineup, right? Give me.
There we go.
I like Derrick Henry to have a big tournament week this week. All right, it's the portion of the show everyone tunes in for. The problem, Ian, this week, dude, we're on the same plays. I didn't even look at yours before I wrote mine in. So let's talk about, actually, I'll let you kind of run through your whole segment here, and I'll give a couple of my thoughts on my guys, see if I can come up with something else. This is the helicopter play segment. Tell the people what these are. We get so many new listeners every single week. What are the helicopter plays doing for us?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick, again, these projection ownerships with the different sites is different. As amazing as Rotogrinders is, and, the class of the industry, I get it, but he's coming in under 5%. And that is our rule, sub 5% ownership and can't have a top 5 price tag at the position. As you said, in these rosters that we're trying to take down the tournaments, you want one or two of these kind of against the grain guys. So those are the guys we're looking for here. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, mentioned this matchup against the Jets, where seemingly the only thing that's going to stop him is if the Dolphins build too big of a lead. Well, if that happens, still touchdowns are going to be coming there. So I think Fitzpatrick with Gaskin, with Jordan Howard now a healthy scratch. Gaskin's getting the goal line work as well. Gaskin, Parker, and Fitzpatrick stacks I think make a lot of sense this week. Miles Sanders, we saw last week, opportunity beats matchup in fantasy football land. Now I was kicking myself for leaving Sanders off this list last week. I went with 4 finalists instead of 5, and I said, you know what, Sanders against the Steelers, can't do it. He only had the one run, and other than that, he couldn't do anything. He had the long run. I hate when we critique guys and say, "Oh, you take away the one play." He made that big play. A lesser player would not have made that big play. It's another tough matchup against the Ravens, but when we have any running back with this massive of a workload going even somewhat under the radar, if they're a half decent player like Miles Sanders is, I think we gotta be willing to go back on that. And then Joe Mixon is someone that we're both on with this Bengals team. I think the Colts are a little bit fraudulent, especially if their stud linebacker Darius Leonard remains out with this groin injury. I mean, this is truly one of the league's more game-changing talents, I think, on defense, regardless of the position. And we saw last week, kind of how they just couldn't slow on the Browns for the first 30 minutes of the game. Kareem Hunt, even Dearness Johnson at the end of the game, we're having some big-time rushing lanes. So Mixon, it remains to be seen. I know he's getting all the targets lately, and that's great. I've had Dwayne McFarland and some good people on the podcast note that his snaps haven't been all that different in 2-minute mode. So, maybe he's probably not going to be getting 6-7 targets per week, but that's okay. If we're getting 20 plus rush attempts and even just 3 or 4 targets, we can live with that. He can make the most of it. Tyler Boyd, again, great. I think underrated matchup. We're freaking out about the Colts a little bit. We'll see. It sounds like AJ Green, the hamstring injury isn't as bad, even if he is out there. I mean, Tyler Boyd, I think at this point we can see is the number 1 pass game option with the Bengals. And then finally, last one is going to be Odell Beckham. So, I know he had this illness earlier in the week, and hopefully it's not COVID. It's just, normal flu. But he remains just a high-end boom candidate every single week. And we saw what happened against the Cowboys. Colts took a little bit of a step back, but the Browns just didn't need to keep their foot on the gas and try to throw the ball. So Steelers defense that is very good. They get a lot of pressure, but we saw Darius Slayton go for 100 plus and 2 touchdowns in week 1. They could not come close to covering something named Travis Fulgham last week. Not to hate on Travis. He's been playing some good ball lately, but this is Odell Beckham against the secondary. We've seen struggle against some opposing wide receiver 1 so far. And the fact that he's just, flying under the radar and not kind of being treated as this candidate that can truly take down a tournament almost by himself if things go right. I think we got to continue going back to well with OBJ in situations like this where the public is not on them.
Yeah, the Steelers are crushing everything underneath, but you are able to beat them deep so far this year. I just want to reiterate my 2 guys. It was Tyler Boyd and it was Joe Mixon. You obviously don't want to play these guys in the same lineup, in my opinion. But Boyd, I made my case earlier in the wide receiver stuff. The slot wide receivers are just crushing the Colts. And then Joe Mixon, I want to point this. The Gio Bernard experiment, it's over, right? Like Vince Carter, it's over. Back-to-back 31 and 32 opportunity games for Joe Mixon. This is unheard of usage, and nobody is talking about him in DFS. It is unheard of to see guys touching the ball 30 plus times at the running back position, and nobody wants to roster him. You mentioned Darius Leonard. He DNP'd Wednesday. He DNP'd Thursday. I checked Twitter. It ain't out yet. So if he DNP's Friday, all systems go for Joe Mixon. Don't mix those 2 together. But I think one of those 2 is going to have a monster game against the Colts. So I am with you on that one. Put one of them in your helicopter play again. I'm gonna tell you to go ahead and do that.
I like it.
All right, we're gonna about do it for week 6. Note to everybody, I am gone. It is my 40th birthday on Sunday. I will not be here. The wife, she's the Disney fan. She's like, you need to go on vacation for your birthday. So we're gonna go hang out with Mickey and Minnie next week. I will not be here, but the show will go on. I don't know who's going to be hosting, but Ian will be back here with his helicopter plays and the manifesto. And then I will make my triumphant return for week 8 on the PFF show. That's all I got for you this week, Ian. It's been a blast like it is every week. Thanks to everybody for watching, not only this show, but every show here at Rotogrinders. We really appreciate it. And with that, thanks to everybody for watching, and we out, ya.